wait. And baby, I'm TFC till I die.
Hello and welcome back to Toronto Till I Die, the Toronto FC fan show. I'm Mike Newell, and they're kicking balls in anger again. Actual games are happening. Toronto FC has finally played its first preseason game this past weekend against Fredrikstad. We'll talk about that a little bit. What did we learn? Was there anything to learn in 4 30-minute halves? As always, with my co-host Michael Singh. Mike, how you doing? How the weekend treating you? Transfer deadline days come and gone. You're a busy man. How did it go?
So busy, but good. This is good, right? I mean, my first time experiencing a European transfer window from like the inside and having to deal with several relationships. And it's a different beast. I love MLS, and I love how niche our community is, and how we get the information, whereas European transfers, it's it's tough to kind of put a lid on everything. But that's the beauty of it as well. There's so many passionate fans worldwide, and I hope one day MLS kind of gets to that level. Now, I like I said, I love it because it is niche and there is a lid on kind of most things for the most part. But like I said, it's just a different beast.
Yeah, for sure. Though I find it interesting, this MLS off season, maybe even the last two sort of MLS winter closed windows, where it feels like a lot more is happening in the MLS windows now, where it feels like these deals are getting done a lot earlier, or these conversations with, championship clubs, with Italian clubs, Spanish clubs, where fees are getting, like fairly big for MLS, fees are happening.
Sure.
They're happening a lot more, and they're breaking in sort of the way that we are used to watching transfers break in Europe. But again, from being on sort of two sides of it, one being on the reporting side and now being on more on the inside of things, how are you seeing the MLS sort of transfer evolve? Of course, we're not talking about TFC; they're not transferring anything. But other clubs, like how are
Yeah.
you seeing that sort of evolve over the last?
Yeah, I mean,
couple
Atlanta
years?
United's a good example, right? And what they did with signing Emmanuel Latelath from Middlesbrough for 22 million, which is a new MLS record for inbound transfer fees. I mean, they also went out and got Miguel Almiron back from Newcastle. The big game changer for me though is the new MLS rule in which it allows teams to pay cash for other MLS players. So not allocation money anymore, obviously, as we know. It's now straight, hey, these are what we have in our pockets. We'll give you this for this player, and let's see how that works. And we've seen a couple of examples of it already take place, notably McGlynn from Philadelphia going to
Yeah, I like that
Houston,
move
right?
for Houston. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's getting there. And that's the thing I guess I'd say is that we are starting to see MLS take that next step forward in sort of the evolution of the league and the players. And I'll give a quick shout out as well to the Canadian Premier League, and we're seeing some CPL players also be transferred abroad. And that reason why that came to mind is because, and I did want to bring this up quickly, is just so that those transfer fees I believe get paid to the league.
Yeah.
And for CPL, that's huge because the investment that they've made into the league, they're getting, yeah, that's their business model, right? The returns that they're getting, let's say 350,000 or 500,000. I mean, that's a significant amount of money
For the
based on
CPL, yes, it is. Yeah.
based on the amount of investment. Now, MLS is doing a similar thing, but you kind of scale that, right? And so we're starting to see a lot of big inbound transfer fees. We're also seeing a lot of big outbound transfer fees today. The latest report from Tom is Cucha Hernandez being transferred to Real Betis for 16 million, right? That's a large amount.
Plus
Like
sell-ons and some performance stuff, right?
exactly, Jan Duran for being transferred to
Chicago.
Saudi and Chicago getting the sell-on fee, which
Hey.
makes their total package about 30 million. Like
Yeah.
those are big numbers. So MLS, that is to say, like MLS, there's a lot of moves going on. We're starting to see more transfers in the league from championship level teams that used to be kind of a one off here and there, but now it seems like a regular. So hopefully, hopefully TFC can get there, and we can start to see TFC get a little bit busier as well with some of these big teams.
Yeah, and again, we kind of said we wouldn't harp too much on the fact that TFC haven't made any signings. We do believe they're coming. Some type of signings are going to be coming in the next couple of weeks before the start of the season. But it's the thing we've kind of mentioned about TFC in the past, and something that they're going to have to get better at in this sort of Jason Hernandez era is finding players that they can sell on. Right, that's the way Atlanta United can go around and spend 40 million in windows, because they sold guys to get that money in the last window. Right, you sell a Yakimakis, you sell an Andrade, Almada, excuse me, like you then have the money to turn around and spend the next window. So you have to get some talent that is sellable to then, recruit that, get that money back, and then you can go and spend that kind of money. Like the way TFC has done it in the past is probably not sustainable realistically, in terms of the way they were just sort of handing out big contracts and not getting any sort of value back, whether it came to results or in player sales.
Definitely, and even throw Inter Miami into that mix, right? They go out and they buy Diego Gomez for a couple $1 million. They go on and sell him for about 18-20 million to Brighton in the
Yeah.
Premier League, and that's a player they had under their wing for like a year and a half. And this is a team that, while it spends big on elder players like a Lionel Messi, a Busquets, a Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez, et cetera, you're still getting that, you know, return on some of these other mechanisms in the league that you can kind of tap into. And yeah, you're right. TFC didn't really uh, hasn't really done a good enough job of that. And it's such a good way for you to, well, A, see return on your investment, but B, like you said, use that as ways to strengthen your squad. It's got to become that cycle. And the one thing that we touched on a bit last week, and I know Jason Hernandez has this front of mind and has touched on this, is just um, you have you kind of have a little bit of that in your own backyard, right? You have a ton of Canadian talent coming through. Some of this Canadian talent has, I guess, been missed in a way by TFC and has been sold by other MLS clubs abroad, and
Yeah.
they've tapped into some of that, I guess, resource that TFC has. But TFC's got to focus a little bit better on that, and then also, like you said, using some of the mechanisms in Major League Soccer to go out and get younger players that they can sell on.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this is going to be a show generally where we want sort of your comments. I know there's a lot of frustration in the fan base right now about lack of signing, just lack of news in general. So we'd love to get your questions, your comments in here. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. I know one comment came in is, "Where's Jeff?" and wanting to give happy birthday. Shout out to Jeff. Of course, it is JPN's birthday. He is recovering at home. I'll let him tell the story when he's back on the show. But obviously, we're wishing him a speedy recovery and a happy birthday to our own Jeffrey P. Nesker today. I'm sure he might be watching, or maybe he's just taking a nap, a well-deserved nap. But we do have a game to talk about. TFC Fredrikstad over the weekend. I was a sickie on Friday. I was laid up with the flu, but I got the good thing about taking the day off from work is I got to watch the game. 4 30-minute halves. Really, sort of that's kind of what the start of preseason is going to always kind of look like. You saw sort of a full strength 11 to start the game. Federico Bernardeschi goes off early, probably just a precaution. But really, I think what you sort of get out of that, one is just Theo Krabanu in his performance. We find out Jack Price is a trialist on the team. And then you sort of see, a different sort of formation with Kobe in as sort of like a third back. DeAndre playing up top. Really being the focal point of trying to play the ball into feet. What did you sort of see out of that friendly in terms of just things that either surprised you
Mhm.
or things that kind of made you think, yeah, this is kind of what I thought it was going to be?
Yeah, for sure. Kind of go in order of the way the game played out. First things first, you're right. Formation was very fluid. I think we saw some variations of a 4-4-2 to some variations of kind of a 5-3-2, kind of like a 3-4-1-2, I believe, at one point as well. Um, that is to say, I think that's kind of be what Robin Fraser brings to the table is that he's going to be someone who is not married to a formation, as we touched on last week. He's going to be someone who's very fluid in the way that he approaches the game, can make adjustments mid game, kind of in a way Greg Vandy did at times as well. And obviously, he is cut from the same cloth there, so it's no surprise that we're going to see sort of that approach, and is obviously different than what we've seen in the past from someone like a Bob Bradley who loved his 4-3-3, or John Herman who loved his three kind of center backs. We saw, as you mentioned, DeAndre Kerr kind of being isolated at times in that number 9 role, being asked to do a lot of work. Um, the one thing that was really cool about the stream, which by the way, shout out Toronto FC for putting that together for fans. I think that kind of stuff goes such a long way.
That went through
In
the Marbella Center, right? Like they probably helped with the camera work and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some assistance there, but trying to see willing to put that stuff out. That's such a good way of getting fans, a little bit more engaged as we get closer to the start of the season, which by the way, less than 3 weeks away
Mm-hmm.
from the start of the season. So we
Yeah.
are almost there. But yeah, going back to the saying is you could hear Robin Fraser and the entire coaching staff really giving feedback to DeAndre Kerr throughout the stream.
Yeah.
They're pushing him, and is he a solution there? In my opinion, not quite. I still think, there was a lot to be desired out of that role. We've touched on this. I think he grew up being faster than everybody else. He's no longer, you know, faster than everyone else, let's say, and he's had to really develop different types of skills in order to uh, develop into that number 9 position, that number 9 role. Kind of the way that Josie Alter always used to kind of push the young kids. It's your hold up play, your first touch. Are you making the runs in the right channels at the right times to support players on the wing? Different types of stuff like that. And that's where DeAndre is really going to be tested. And I think it was very glaringly obvious that TFC needed a number 9 in that role. So I mean, we know they're out there looking. There there's a lot of chatter going around, and I'm confident in saying that they're going to get someone uh in due time. Let's put it out there. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to kind of touch on was, yeah, Bernardeschi goes down very quick. And what really surprised me, well, A, is that injury is alarming, in my opinion. You never want to see someone go, even
Yeah.
if it's precautionary.
Yeah.
You never really want to see that. But the second thing is Theo Corbeanu. When he moved into that right winger role, he was electric.
Dynamic. Very
He
dynamic.
was, taking players on 1v1. He kinda felt like he was more settled into his own, and, I talked about kind of the tidbits that some of the younger guys on the team used to give me about Theo. You could see that come out. The skill is quite clearly there, and he just looked a lot more comfortable on that right winger kinda role, right-sided for whatever you wanna call it.
Yeah.
We know Bernardeschi's gonna play there. So, are you gonna get the best out of Theo if Bernardeschi is on the pitch? Do they move Bernardeschi at all in order to get Theo in that position? Are you just asking Theo to play maybe a different role? We'll see. But I thought Theo was by far TFC's best player throughout the training sessions, or sorry, throughout the scrimmage. The other thing was Matty Longstaff. He looks like he's gonna be a very, very important piece
Yeah, they
to
were
this.
screaming a lot of instructions to him as well during the scrimmage as well.
Definitely. He looks like he looks like he's going to be a really important piece to this team. We saw Jack Price line up next to them. Uh, Again, another. Another kind of depth piece brings a little bit different of a skill set to the table. We know that he is unbelievable at set pieces and can absolutely swing a ball in and deliver a ball into dangerous areas. I don't think TFC necessarily lack that,
Mm,
although their finish off set pieces has been non-existent. Which, by the way, Theo Corbeanu got that set piece goal, which was probably the
yeah,
first set piece goal. When I say set piece, I mean free kick, direct free kick goal since Josie Altidore.
2021, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but you think if you have Bernardeschi in your team, do you really need kind of that quality? Uh, but yeah, that's me. A lot of me talking. What else did you see?
Yeah, I was again. I just looked at it also defensively. Like I thought that defensively. I mean, look, it's hard to take too much out of a training session game, but I thought defensively they looked pretty solid, at least in the first 60, with the first sort of squad.
Mhm.
If I kind of step back and sort of say, okay, well, we kind of knew what that was going to kind of look like in the first game. In the second game, putting Adam Perlman out there, I'm always interested in sort of these TFC2 players that are trying to, cement themselves a role on this team, and how did they look? I thought Perlman looked okay. Again, not really ready for significant minutes,
Mhm.
but looks like he may get, sort of that. Sort of that task as that sort of fifth center back kind of role. Sigurd Rosted, I thought looked again pretty solid. Like I think sort of
Mhm.
that initial year that everybody kind of looked and like, ooh, I don't know. When asked to do sort of the simple stuff is completely fine and serviceable as a center back. So that's kind of what I was looking at. I mean, obviously Theo catches the eye, and yes, I agree with you. He was clearly the standout player in the side. The one thing I guess that will concern me through both sets of lineups that went through is the way to goal. It kind of looked like you're going to run into some of the similar issues
100%.
that you had last season, which is they can possess the ball, they can move the ball. That's not a problem. But when you get to that final third, man, they're just no ideas,
Yeah.
in terms of how to break a team down if they want to sit deep. And that is going to be until we see some new signings come in and some new ideas come into this team. Scoring goals, we knew it was going to be a thing with this team. It,
Mhm.
it was glaring on Friday. Like it just didn't.
100%.
Yeah, right. It just
100%.
didn't look like they were gonna. I don't think they created something really through play. Maybe until like the 105th minute when they kind of got a half breakaway and Charlie Sharp, blasted one 10 feet over the bar. But like it was at least a passage of play that got him in on goal. Um, yeah, that was the thing that kind of scared me was just they moved the ball left, right, no problem, but no penetration whatsoever.
Yeah, it did feel like this game was definitely about TFC finding their footing and kind of sticking to the basics and ensuring that they got the fundamentals down. Defensively, they didn't give up too much. Offensively, though, you're bang on. They created maybe a handful of chances, if that, and it's kind of it was reminiscent of last year, and you kind of get the feeling of why fans are you know clamoring for signings, and they
Yeah.
want something fresh kind of injected into this team, especially moving forward. Um, it in my opinion, you mentioned Sigurd Roasted there, yeah, very solid. Kevin Long was the Kevin Long that we know, really really good. Uh, they need a center back. They need a starting quality center back, in my
Well,
opinion.
here's a question. There, people were asking. Turrets asked, "Where was
Yeah,
Nixon Gomes
it's a good
throughout
question.
this?"
Yeah,
Because you would think he would show up in at some point during that game, but he was not in the lineup or the squad at all. So I don't know. We'd have no status report. We don't know. And you would think as a player that was pretty important to that back line last season would be starting to get some minutes, but not a thing yet.
Yeah, I don't know if it was injury related or something else. Henry Wingo is another guy
Yeah.
who we didn't see feature. Could be a bang, something they're banged up or something, but I don't know. Assume Nick and Gomez and Henry Ringo are going to be there. I still think they need one more guy at the back.
Like a starting center. Do you think it's got to be a
Yes,
starter? Yeah.
I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they have too many of those guys who you can kind of plug in there and they'll get a 6 out of 10 performance or a 7 out. They need a guy who can be, can we get a younger version of Kevin Long?
That'd be nice.
Is that possible? So I thought that was clear. Do we want to talk about Insigne?
Well, there is the comment here. What was your thoughts regarding Insigne's performance? So let's talk about it. Brady Sports Network asking, you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll start.
Go for it.
Polarizing is the way I describe it.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously, this is a loud message to Lorenzo Insigne from Toronto FC's management, coaching staff. He gets played with the reserves. And Lorenzo Insigne is probably not used to playing with reserves. A lot of TFC2 guys, a lot of draft picks, a lot of the younger guys, obviously Alonso and Davy Flores were there in the middle with them as well. But the message is there.
Yeah.
Now, he didn't sulk per se. You could hear them talking to him, but did he give it 100%? No chance. Right? And it was not a surprise, I guess, to see that type of performance out of Lorenzo Insigne in preseason when he's playing with the reserves.
Fair. I mean, I think look. I'm not trying to rehash all of the Lorenzo hate that a lot of people have, and it's been out there. But there was a lot made about the fact that if he wants to be here, he's gonna have to work. He's gonna have to do, and it just didn't look like there was a lot of interest in that. Not even from the fact of like, hey, I'm going to just get the ball and I'm going to sort of cut and try to shoot a lot. It was a lot of just kind of indifference on the ball, which, again, it's a preseason game. It's the first preseason of the game, right? So I could see a scenario where you're not necessarily burning it the entire time, right? Especially because, your roster spot is not really in jeopardy. But yeah, a lot of the comments here was, yes, it was a Sunday stroll kind of in the park, right? And, played pretty easy passes. I don't know, man. I mean, what more can be said? What more honestly can be said at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know what the situation is. I think Lorenzo Insigne knows. I think the club knows. And it doesn't hurt to motivate him a little bit by saying, hey, if you do decide to stay, this is going to be your life. You're going to be part of our second team in a way, not necessarily TFC2, but like you're going to be quite possibly coming off the bench. It's not always going to be, this is your show now, Lorenzo, and we need you to save us. We're going to find a way to swim without you. And we're not going to use you or rely on you as that lifeline. Even though he might be there and he could be that in some instances, the role he plays if he stays at TFC is not going to be as walk in the park, stroll in the park as it was in the past, where he gets his guaranteed role, his guaranteed minutes. They're going to treat him like he's, God here. It's not happening anymore. I think that's a clear message from the coaching staff there. But in In saying that, the resolution, that's not what TFC want. They don't want to be in that position. What they want is obviously for Lorenzo Insigne to broker a move for
Go to
himself.
Besiktas.
Yeah, if it's Besiktas, if it's back to Italy, if that's even possible still.
Oh no, window's closed. No.
Yeah, it might be. I'm not sure if there's any mechanism around it. I'm not sure if there's any,
Mm.
maybe something was done at the final. I don't know, but
Oh, well.
they would love if Lorenzo could broker his own move.
Okay. All right. I'll ask because we're kind of like we're kind of dancing around it a little bit. But
Hmm.
if Besiktas does not work out or Turkey does not work out, right? The window in Turkey's open until the 11th. Do they just bite the bullet and buy him out, and that's his route back to Italy, right? Like is that something this? I mean, we've kind of talked about it in
Hmm.
sort of this is a tool that they have,
Yeah,
but I think it's coming down to the point where it's going to be the realist it's probably ever been. Is this? Do you just bite the bullet and you just pay him to leave?
this is does playing him less and playing with the reserves lower that price to buy him out? That actual dollar price, because on the cap it's 0,
Mhm.
but you're paying him 15 million on average per season for the next, you know, however long his contract, year and a half remaining. So yeah, I mean, is that on the table? Possibly. Do they want to go that route? They'd rather not. Of course not. Wouldn't it be better to cover, let's say, 25-50% of his wages and have him move to Besiktas? Yeah. Um, it's a big domino that has to fall. It certainly is. But I think TFC are proceeding regardless if they have him on their roster or not. They have to.
Mhm. But then that's sort of coming back to this whole question, like why aren't the moves happening
Mhm.
the when fans prefer to have the moves happen, right? Is this idea of, are we waiting for this Lorenzo Insigne domino to fall before the rest of the things can happen?
Mm.
I think Jason Hernandez has told us that you know his move does not need to happen before moves need to be made. Like that,
Yeah,
he's told us that, but there's difference one thing between telling you publicly and what actually can happen.
sure.
Um, is
This is
that sort of the thing that we're waiting for?
Well, what I'll say is this is a cycle every single year in Major League Soccer with any fan base. Maybe aside from Atlanta right now, because Atlanta's thrilled right now. You're right. The season is 2.5 weeks away, and I get it. I get the anxiety and the nerves. But look back at last season. When were the moves made?
Most of them were made
And
after the first game.
so one of the moves, yeah, Matty Longstaff was actually signed after the first game. Richie Larea was signed 3 days before the start of the season. Nixon Gomes was signed 3 days before the start of the season. Kevin Long was signed 6 days before the start of the season. Um, that is to say, things can go late. And is it ideal for anyone's sake? No, people want preseasons together, right? But at the same time, there's so many different moving parts and so many different obstacles that you have to kind of overcome to get a transfer over the line, to get a signing over the line. And, what I'd say is, as Jason Rand has come out and said, like he knows that this team needs to be improved. The roster needs to be improved. He knows that TFC need to go out and get a number 9. The team is well aware of this, and they are going to make that, number 9 signing. It's just a matter of what it takes to get it over the line. And it's gonna be close to the start of the season, possibly. Is it gonna be after the first game? Possibly, but regardless, this team is getting a number 9.
Okay, there you heard it first. The team will get a number 9. I mean, the window doesn't
I don't
close
think you
till
could say
April
they
like
heard it
22nd.
first. I feel like everyone knows. I think Jason Hernandez said that. I don't think it's a surprise.
I know he said that, but you know, a lot of fans just right now are like, I don't believe you because they kind of want to. They'll believe it when they see it, kind of thing.
It's a cycle. It's been this way since I've covered the team. Quite frankly, it's always been like this, and the beat reporters do an incredible job covering this team. John and Neil, and kind of what the cards that they have. They do an incredible job covering this team. Josh Cloak put out a rumor that was out there that kind of shows you the type of caliber of player that TFC are going after.
Yeah.
So, things are happening. It's just they're not ready to tell you yet.
Yeah, and I think I get why fans are frustrated, right? They're looking around and they're seeing it. Obviously, Atlanta make their moves. You've seen SKC go out and make their moves to get Dejan Joveljic from LA Galaxy by using the new interleague money trade transfer, whatever you want to call it now, cash money, basically.
I guess we can't really say cash money anymore.
No,
that's like a banned word on this show. After
I know. He may come back. He may come back.
He
You don't
may
know.
come back.
He may
God.
come back.
Oh, gosh.
Loan's done in July. But yeah, like you're watching all these teams around the league make moves, seemingly able to bring in pieces that they need, before the season starts, right? Before the games actually count. And the little TFC is stuck basically looking like 2024 TFC with Theo Corbinu is your one signing, right? And look,
great signing, by the way.
But great signing so far.
Great
but
signing.
That's you need a little bit more, right? And that's where fans get a little up in arms to look around the league, right? And say, like, what's going on here?
100%, and I don't blame them at all, right? Because you do see a lot of shiny toys elsewhere, and you do see a lot of money being splashed. First, TFC splashed that money. They did, and it's being spent on their payroll. So until they can kind of free that up, and I expect even Bernardeschi to get a bit of a bump up as well. It's tough. It's tough to kind of compete with that. Like you said, Atlanta sold guys to get to that point.
This is
right?
true.
They brought in a lot of money. TFC haven't brought in that money for them to spend it. In fact, they've only
paid guys to leave.
They've only drained that money. They've only drained that.
It's the truth, right? It's you gotta make a little bit money to spend it. And TFC just simply have not really done that.
Or you earn the trust of the board again, which is a hard thing to do. But who knows with a new CEO, and they reinvest in you, because we know TFC have an ownership with deep pockets.
But do you bring in Robin Fraser to then go spend a ton of money like that? That doesn't, like, I respect Robin Fraser
for sure
as a coach. I just don't know if you bring him in to be like, hey, we're going to then back him with this like 2 massive DP signings
100%.
or anything like that.
And I honestly feel like TFC have maybe around the league even a bit of PTSD. And do you ever want to go that too big DP signing route again? Or are you going to go after kind of what you mentioned, a 24 or 25-year-old player in their prime, or 26-year-old player kind of more in their prime, maybe less of that baggage that comes with signing a big name like that? Maybe a player here that's there to prove themselves and go on and make that move to Europe. Maybe it's someone like a Cujo Hernandez, right? Yeah, I don't think it matters who their coach. You're right. Like I get the question, but I don't think it should matter who the coach is. You gotta make sure that you do your part as a club, because you're not building for a coach. You're building for Toronto FC. And if Robin Fraser isn't able to handle that, then he's not a guy that stops this team from moving forward, right? Big name player comes available that you think will make your team better, you go out and you get him if you can afford it.
Fair. I just don't think TFC is in a position right now to really do that, because I don't know if they fully know what their core is. Right, we talked about this before. It's you gotta kind of build the body first, right? And right
Totally.
now, I don't know if they fully know all the pieces of that body yet.
That's such a good point, because like, even if Lorenzo Insigne, let's just say he does agree to a move and they can, get off his salary, there's no guarantee TFC right away go back and invest that money,
And DP,
right? Right away. It could wait till the summer. It could wait till next season. Right? We don't know. But the just because you move on from Lorenzo doesn't mean you bring in another uh superstar.
yeah. And just based on sort of where the roster sort of sits as of today, and let's just assume Lorenzo's staying at this point, that striker that you're saying is probably coming in soonish ish is not going to be a DP9, most likely. Is going to be like a profile, somebody who has a profile of scoring goals, but isn't necessarily going to be like a designated player, big name number 9.
Yeah, most likely. I say that's fair. They do have the ability to, buy down Richie Larea and still go the 3 DP model.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if I'm a fan of that route. I still think there's more value in the 2 DP 4 U22 initiative players. Goes back to kind of what you're saying about the sell on and the value in getting more return on those guys. And you get more allocation money to play with. Like, we know the positives of it. I still think that's the best way forward, but given the way the team is currently constructed, maybe that 3 DP model is their only way.
To get a decent striker, I don't know if I necessarily agree that you have to go the DP route to get.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
Yeah.
But
I don't think you have to.
Is it off the table?
To me, I think it should be off the table. Right now, of course, it depends on what happens with Lorenzo. Right, if Lorenzo ends up being bought out or goes to Besiktas or goes somewhere else, it does open up another DP slot. Okay, maybe it's not off the table, but I just don't think you need to go the DP route. I think you can find strikers that can do a job for you in MLS that doesn't need a DP tag. And I think if you go the 2 DP route, you use your U22s intelligently, you find those right players to help you build that core, then I think you have something. Then I think you're cooking, right? Like, even if, you keep Lorenzo, all right, fine. The season doesn't go so well. All right, you get rid of him in the off season. You have some young players that can step into roles, right? You can keep Theo. You can do some things creatively within the team that are just a bit different. Then going down kind of the same route you've been going down these last sort of 5-6 years, that just hasn't worked. It's kind of the old adage, why you keep on doing the same things that don't work, right? It's at a certain point you do need to change things around a little bit in terms of the way the roster gets built, because it feels like you just go in this cycle of you kind of get yourself out of a cap hell just to get yourself right back into it. And that's something that I would make me hesitate unless you have found absolutely no doubt about it number 9, right? Which I just don't think they would find at this point.
Yeah, and look, they've been smart. I one thing I'll say is I do find that the team is being smart and looking at a lot of loans, which is a very valuable tool if you can strike that deal. What that means is, you're just absorbing a player's existing salary at their club, which actually at times is under the market salary that you would pay in Major League Soccer. Okay, so let's use Theo Corbeanu as an example. With his existing club, you're probably looking at his salary maybe around 700, 800. Okay. if you were to re-sign Theo Corbeanu in Major League Soccer right now, you're probably looking at like max 10
Hmm.
or around there. I think TFC are really exploring that route with loans. And I think they're smart to do so. If you can get a purchase option, even better. Gives you some flexibility, like they did with Theo Corbeanu. But I think that's something they're exploring as well.
Hmm.
So could you get a DP quality striker with a purchase option? That's an ideal
That'd be good.
world, or even better, someone who's out of contract.
Yeah, that would work. But we'll see. Right now it's February 3rd. They were supposed to play a friendly yesterday, and then it got canceled. So they'll be back. I think they're on their way back to Toronto as we speak. So they should be back in town tomorrow. And they don't play another friendly until next week when they're in Florida. So that's the next time we'll get to see this team, and at that point we'll kind of see, answer the questions about where's Henry Wingo, what's going on with Gomes. Richie Larea should be back by then. I believe his wife's giving birth to their second child, so that's why he was away from camp. I know some people were panicking for a quick second, like, why is he leaving camp? It's okay, he's just gonna be a daddy again. And then we'll see if there are other trialists that come in, because usually the second part of camp, they usually bring some other trialists in. So we'll see if Jack Price is still around as a trialist. I scratch of the head. I don't know. I mean, outside of, bring whipped balls, I just don't know. 6 games since 2022 when he got released from the Rapids. So he hasn't played a lot of football in the last couple of years. So I don't really know where the fit is, but obviously somebody who can at least raise the compete level.
Definitely. Like when he plays, he's a starting caliber player.
Yeah.
It's just if he's also the same player. Like, do we know if he can return to kind of that form? He's obviously up there in age. You go through very significant injury. Achilles are never something to mess with there, and could absolutely change the trajectory of your career, but maybe it's something you can also bounce back from, recover from. And I think playing him in that 11 to start with, clearly a sign of intent that the TFC saw something that they liked. And if he can be some kind of shade of that, his former self, he'd be a very useful player to Toronto FC, in my opinion. It's just there's question marks there.
Yeah.
But look at Matty Longstaff, completely different age, completely younger player. I get that. TFC got Matty Longstaff for a really, really, really good price because Matty Longstaff was coming off an injury. Could they do the same with kind of a Jack Price, low risk, kind of high reward sort of move? That's kind of the way that I see it.
Fair. And then depth, right? Like that is a position that needs a lot of depth right now. So, I don't think you need.
I scratched my head at that. They have a lot of depth though,
but like depth that you are gonna like count on game to game. Like there's difference between having bodies and having like depth. Like Kosi, yes, and
so you have Alonso, Davey, Jonathan Osorio, Matty Longstaff.
But those generally are going to be your starters for most. So I know one's going to have to probably sit out, but like generally those are your starters for the most part.
I think so. In my opinion, if they're going to bring in a center midfield, they need someone who can elevate that and bring in a different profile. Like bring in someone with like a number 10, who would you keep saying, that can actually unlock more in the final third. Right, we have someone like Alonso who's so good at progressing the ball.
Yes,
he breaks so many lines, but when you get to that final pass, he's not finding that final pass. Ozo, again, he's not a guy who you give him the ball, he's breaking down a low block, right? That person's supposed to be Lorenzo or Bernadeschi, but it hasn't worked, right? You got to bring in someone who can. I love Victor Vasquez, kind of connect the dots a little bit in that toughest part of the field that you to connect dots. But you also need someone who can make those runs and can give them an option in that final third as well.
Yeah, I mean, you go back and find where's Pozuelo doing these days?
Yeah.
Yeah, true. You need a number 10, but like again, like Jack Price isn't a guy who's gonna
No,
fit that profile. Kosi doesn't fit that profile.
no.
You're gonna have to go and find somebody who can. And is that interleague? Is that somebody from outside the league? I don't know, right? That's something that I feel like we've talked so much about a number 9. Like we need a 9. But I actually think that role might even be kind of more important than a 9, because you can have a number 9, but look, and if you watch that game on Friday, you can have a great number 9, but if you can't create any chances, I don't know where they're going to be able to score goals, because where are they going to be able to even create an opportunity for that number 9 to score goals?
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's both. It really is both. Because listen, Prince has obviously joined the dark side now, but I always felt that he was a guy that had he got better service, um, in the way that I think was best for him. Like obviously he missed a ton of chances and he could have finished a lot better. Um, but he was never a guy who was TFC's first option when Bernardeschi comes down the right wing or the left wing, or Insigne comes on the left wing. You're never looking for Prince,
Yeah.
right? Or Prince is very isolated. If you were to have Prince play with someone like Paz, I, I think that would have been different. But he sucks now and we hate him. So
Exactly. Who? All right. So I mean, like, it'll be interesting. So for those who don't know, there's like a season ticket supporters thing happening this Thursday. I'll be at that. So if there are any questions that you want asked of the management, there, Jason Hernandez will be there. Keith Pelly will be there. Robin Fraser will be there. Let us know. We'll try to see if we can get a few of those in and try to get some answers for you guys. But the other thing I want to sort of talk about tonight before we wrap up the show, kits. Yes. Yeah. Home kit has been leaked, and yes, it is red. How are we feeling? TFC Live. No more Onyx hoops for you. It is solid red home kit with, it looks like a gradient, some kind of weird I don't think it's weird. I think it's supposed to be a Phoenix wing. I think that's what it's supposed to be. But that was the leak this weekend, was the new kit. I don't know if anybody's been down to the Eaton Center the last couple of days to see it just hanging out in the store shop window. I'm sure TFC's media team loved the kit being probably leaked 2 weeks early.
It's an annual tradition.
The annual exactly.
But at
least it wasn't like an SVP out in like Woodbridge, right? Like it was actually, a flagship Adidas store downtown, right?
Yeah. What I always say with kits, I love to see the full kit before I make kind of my judgment on it. What I will say is it was the easiest layup in the world for Toronto FC. Put out a red kit.
Put out a red shirt.
Put out a red kit.
and everyone's like, it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, and you will make fans happy.
Yeah,
but let's see what it looks like when they dress it up. I mean, what kind of pants do they wear? What kind of shorts do they wear? What kind of socks do they wear?
I think I saw it already because
Oso
Oso, well, not the whole thing. So like Oso wore the reversible anthem jacket. Yeah, at the media day, but he wore the shorts. So like when he got up from doing his press, like you saw the shorts and it was like red and it had like a lighter red like strip down the side. So it's going to be like that similar to what you saw on the top, like that two-toned kind of red is what you're going to see probably in the shorts. So
they doubled down
be all
on the
red.
So it's like no white on this kid.
They heard you. Okay,
you wanted red. I'll give you red.
Yeah, exactly. Though I mean, like I like the what was it from like 2019 to what did we wear till 22, 21? The sort of the red kit that we wore to the 2019 final with the button. Like I thought that was
it's just classic
red.
red.
Yeah, it's a classic
very,
red.
Very
like it was,
basic classic.
Yeah,
Nothing.
I thought it was just a pajama shirt, and then I was like, okay, no, I can
Yeah.
vibe this. And then and
Hey,
everybody
you
hated the
winning
shirt
that
afterwards.
kit? You winning that kit, Mike? It automatically becomes the greatest kit of all time,
Well, yeah,
right?
that's why everybody keeps looking at the one kit from 17, thinking it's the greatest kit ever, and it's like, it's good. It's the
Hey,
greatest kit ever. It's good.
it's got a
It's a good kit.
star. That 2022 kit, I think it was
Yeah.
2021, 2022. It's the black and red.
Yeah, with
That kit is so
the
nice.
black gradient thing. I like that one.
That kit is
I liked
so
it.
nice.
I
I love
liked
that
it.
kit.
I liked it a lot. Right.
I also really like the current away kit.
Yes.
Like
It's grown
current,
on me.
I really like that kit.
It has grown on me. Like I still don't like the gradient on it, the Windows screensaver gradient on it, but
Yeah,
like it has grown on me. The alternate third shield thing has grown on me.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm for it.
Yeah.
So excited to see what that looks like. I want to see TFC back in good old red and white.
Yeah. So we'll probably get some kind of confirmation of that being the full kit. We'll probably see that with the shorts and the socks probably fairly soon. They're probably going to be doing some of the media stuff this week when they're back in Toronto, and then they head off to Florida. So we'll keep an eye out for that. Outside of that, I mean, really, we're going to just keep an eye out for news and see what kind of drops in terms of either player signings or anything like that, or players leaving the club. Obviously, we'll post those once we get those updates. But Mikey, any last words for you that you want to drop before we head out tonight?
No, just fingers crossed. Typically during this stretch in between camps is when new faces are acclimated to the mix, right before you depart for your second part of camp. So if a signing's made, let's just say it's over the line in the last couple of days, they're obviously not going to fly out to Spain and join the team for a day or 2 days, right? They're going to meet the team back in Toronto or even straight to Florida. So who knows when you actually get word of it, but there likely will be more faces integrated into the mix for that second part of camp. So fingers crossed we got some news, because I know I feel it too. It's frustrating. You want to envision what this new version of Toronto FC looks like, and you still kind of feel like it's the past version, but don't lose hope. There is signings coming. There will be new faces that join this club and hopefully give this team a bit of a fresher feel than what we've been accustomed to.
Yeah, absolutely. So look out for that as we drop some of that news. Also, we will be doing our preseason sort of preview. So look out for that before the 22nd when they go to DC, and we'll kind of give you as the team is at the time of we recording, where we think they're going to end up in the league. I will just shout out that I did have the finishing 12th. I was the closest last year. I said they were going to be 12th to finish 11th. Turt still owes me a lunch. So
Turt still owes you a lunch, for
still
sure.
owes me a lunch.
At one point, though,
it was he almost had me.
You were getting the wallet out for Turts. You were making some
Yeah.
reservations.
Yeah, Turts. It was close. Yeah, you almost had me, and then they came good at the end. No. Yeah, I did want a beer. Well, I'll take a beer. That's fine.
Mike's always down for a beer.
I'm always down for a beer. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Thank you for tuning into another Toronto Till I Die. We really appreciate you obviously tuning in and all the comments in the community. We really enjoy it. Follow us on all the socials. Search Toronto Till I Die to find us there. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, go ahead, do that. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell for notifications when we're going to be dropping the next show. For all your podcast listeners out there listening to this a day later, just hit us up with a nice review, 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts. Really appreciate that. For Michael Singh and for me, Mike Newell, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Cheers, everybody. Bye.
And wait, and baby, I'm TFC till I die.